we need immigration, and we strongly believe in immigration. Most people do, but also because of the declining birth rates, right? You look around your peer group, families, friends, whatever. How many people are having more than one kid, or even having kids to begin with, right?
Look, I get it. The Toronto real estate market is confusing. Whether you're a new or experienced investor or just looking for a home to raise your family in, join us at Broadview Table Talks as you sit around the table with my friends and talk about the real estate and the ever-changing market in Toronto.
We good? And we're live? All right. Okay, so I saw an interesting article today, and it was in Globe Mail. There are no solutions to Canada's housing crisis, only trade-offs. Sounds kind of...
sounds dark.
Right?
Sounds dark, but it's always been the reality.
Yeah, that's it. Unfortunately, sounds gloomy, but what's the trade-offs?
Well, Michael just read the article, so you tell us what it was.
So there's a lot of truths that they have to it. So one of them is, you can always expand housing by increasing your urban sprawl, which allows you to form new communities really far out, build new houses, expand land use. But the problem with that is you rely more heavily on transportation, either personal or public. And you also decrease the amount of uses that you have for that land. So you usually cut into green space, into farmland, into lands that could benefit us all as a whole.
I think that's kind of BS. First of all, no, you know how they say that? Because if you look at the edge of the greenbelt where development actually is, right? On one side, it's all houses, all subdivisions. And the other side is still farmland. And you wonder why that is. Like, there's no farming going on. It's just actually scraggly land that...
It's just people who don't want to get rid of it.
No, because there's an arbitrary line that was drawn.
Right, yeah.
Years back.
Okay.
A couple decades back. And they haven't really moved from there, right? So that land should be repurposed. Obviously, there's some land that is on floodplains and things like that you can't actually use, but some of it can be used.
Well, I mean, the argument for urban sprawl would also be, would you want to commute 2 hours to get to your job downtown? Or would you fully embrace the work from home model?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it does a lot to the environment too, right? With like pollution and carbon and all that kind of stuff. Just the transportation alone is a lot.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the infrastructure you got to put in place, like sewers and roads and
roads,
more
buses, public transit. I mean, when you're out there, generally you don't really think about taking public transit until you're out there, and you're like, oh God, I have to take the bus to get groceries.
Oh, you know what? Actually, I was looking the other day. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to live in Moonstone? Yeah. Sister lives out there, right?
Where's that? What is this?
It's like north of, it's like Simcoe, past Barrie.
Okay.
Near Mountain Moonstone there.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you want like Uber, you can't get Uber Eats there, right?
Yeah.
So I actually tried it.
She knows you really well.
I actually tried it. Like, you couldn't get it. It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen Uber Eats before, where you couldn't even see any like options.
It doesn't load.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, no, I've seen it. No, I've seen it. Like no Ubers either, no like actual transportation. Yeah, it still take cabs, which is fine, but I prefer Uber and Lyft and accessibility that way.
The majority of the population does. Yeah, for sure.
But I open up the app and just like I lost my convenience. Now I have to wait an hour, 2 hours for a cab.
It's not even convenience. So it's like survival. How do you live?
So that's the thing about urban sprawl. To be able to live, you need to rely on yourself for transportation, whether it's you driving yourself or someone else driving you. And it's generally not like Uber.
So Lyft, all these places are not set up for infrastructure. Like they can't.
Or it takes a lot for infrastructure to be set up.
Yeah. So, actually, it's funny because Pierre Poilievre, he just recently said Canada has the largest landmass of all G7 nations and per capita, right? Mm-hmm. Which is true.
Yes.
But all that land is not usable. Like it is usable. It's just that there's no infrastructure put in place.
Well, and we're all hunkered down here on the southernmost border.
End. Yeah.
I think the stat is 90% of the people live in close to the U.S. border.
Yeah, exactly.
Within a certain mile radius of the border.
Yeah, and the further north you go, it's like, oh my God, it's a ghost town in some places. With 6,000, 7,000 people in their town's population, it's quiet. So unless you're fully able to experience that or embrace that, it doesn't make so much sense for urban sprawl in some cases for some people.
Hey, I'm not saying urban sprawl is good. I'm just saying that was one option. So you're saying
that was option. One option to one.
That was not a solution to Canada's housing crisis.
It was a potential solution.
Okay.
Second potential solution was urban densification, which we talk about a lot of, growing up instead of growing out.
Yeah.
Which we have been slightly doing lately, like with just all our heavy investments in building more condos or just allowing multi-level housing here.
Mm-hmm. Densification of urban, suburban or yellow belt areas, I guess they call it, right?
Yeah.
So that means like traditionally where it's only single family zoning now, we're no longer actually, I think there's an outright ban at least in Vancouver. There's an outright ban on single family zoning, so you can't even build a single house if you wanted to. I think something like that. Anyway, here we're allowed up to 4 units as of right in Ontario or Toronto. Sorry, I should say it's only Toronto right now. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. So that's kind of building up in a sense.
It is
intensifying the land more.
Yeah.
But of course, that comes with its own challenges, right?
Again, infrastructure being the main one. Like, how do you accommodate that many more people? Like we've seen in recent history, especially in areas similar to City Place, sometimes when you have so many condo buildings go up in such a short period of time, the infrastructure can't handle all those people. So things like Toronto hydro power stations get fried because there's just too much heat being, brownouts, blackouts sometimes, just from too much heat being generated from all the electrical demand.
Or however it works, There's always demand on the power grid for sure.
Yeah, and lots of traffic, which necessitated the need for the King Pilot Street project.
Right, which hasn't done any better. Did you see that article recently about how they tried all the different modes of transportation, driving, biking, and
streetcars.
Oh, yeah.
And they said that was actually the slower one.
I still maintain that streetcars
streetcar?
don't make sense.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. Like they're supposed to top up at what, like 60, but I've only seen them go at 20.
Yeah.
20 kilometers.
It's because
when one goes down, they bunch up.
Yeah, and
against
then they
one another,
bunch
and it's
up.
like, what's the point?
I always walk.
So would you rather do a Tesla tunnel?
Well, I'd rather have double-decker buses.
What?
Double-decker buses are the way to go. They can move around freely in traffic, and they basically pack twice as many people per bus into like one footprint.
Okay, so double-decker EV buses.
Double-decker EV buses.
Better for the environment, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would think.
Anyway, like for example, try getting out of Liberty Village at 5 o'clock or something, right? It's impossible. Or even
Liberty Village is special.
Yeah.
They only have one road coming in and out.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. East Liberty Street, which is tough. So you're right. So that comes with its own challenges when you intensify a city. And then, obviously it gets unaffordable to live in, right? Like we can never build the supply fast enough to keep up with the demand. So then, of course, there's homeless people, and all that stuff, right? And homeless people, if you're homeless, like, would you rather go to the middle of nowhere, or would you rather live in the city center where people are?
I'd rather be in the city. There's more people to beg.
That's right. And then becomes more crime. And I'm not saying all homeless people cause crime, but like there certainly is a large proportion of that, right? Especially the heavy drug use in the community as well.
Especially the people who take advantage of the people who are vulnerable already. And we see more of that if there are more vulnerable people.
What do you mean, man? Who poured your coffee today? What are you saying? No, take advantage of them?
No. Like the people who are actually selling drugs, who are catering the drugs to them, and anyone who's willing to do like any illegal activities, like they're the ones who are actually preying on homeless people.
True.
Right.
True. That's sad, but ultimately that's a side effect of having a larger city, right?
Yeah, more densification,
more Gotham City, like.
Yeah.
Sorry. Side note though, when it comes to the whole topic of intensifying the city, and we talked about the multi-unit housing. Is it even working really? Because I feel like it relies on mom and pop investors or just small time investors, just because in theory, I like the idea and it sounds like it works, but we don't have the statistics yet, I believe. But like, are people really making these units?
There is a statistic. I just got to find it, but the numbers are pretty low, and that comes to a number of factors. Though it's not only, first of all, allowing the zoning to build those type of housing on there is amazing. Yeah, but the problem is real life kicks in, and the cost of construction.
Yeah, do people really want to do it?
Right? Well, it's just expensive.
Yeah,
right. Unless the government or somebody, CMHC or whoever, gave some sort of favorable financing. Then that would make sense, right? And it would have a big giant push for it. But yeah, the cost of construction is huge. Not only that, not everybody wants a second person or another family on their home, third, fourth, fifth family on their homes, right, on their lot. They don't want to share it. They actually may have a large family and they have to use every single square inch of it, right? But yeah, it certainly does help. It's just we need to get the cost under control. And then anyway, with challenges of intensifying neighborhoods is that you have issues with not only traffic, but you have the schools. Schools are all at capacity as well, too.
Right.
Hospitals are at capacity, right? Wait times are through the roof.
Emergency services.
All that.
Everything.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, when you're planning the multiplex stuff, though, it's kind of cool because you have to have a certain amount of width between the houses, right? There's some
that's cool.
specifications for building code and stuff. So that emergency service can get to, the
Yeah,
back
like you can fit
Main
the
Street or whatever.
you can fit the
Gurneys
you can
and-
fit firefighter equipment through it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's multi-unit, which is the cheaper way of doing it, which is subdividing their current structure into multiple units. So that's a lot easier and more cost efficient for sure. But some people don't want to retrofit. A lot of people don't want to retrofit their house for that.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
It's possible.
What are the other options that we have?
So
here?
the third and final option.
It's not the final. There's a lot of options.
There are a lot of options, but the third option that was proposed by the article, which was interesting, was to actually slow down the rate of increase for a population, which also involves immigration.
Right. So that is a huge challenge from what I've been hearing about this. Because first of all, nobody wants this to be anti-immigrant, right? Like in, politically anyway. Because then, look at us. We were born here. No, we were born here, but our culture is not from here.
Yeah.
Actually, even you would argue the white people aren't even from here originally.
Yeah. Right? You can say that.
Yeah, how far back do you want to go?
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? So we need immigration, and we strongly believe in immigration. Most people do, but also because of the declining birth rates, right? You look around your peer group, families, friends, whatever. How many people are having more than one kid, or even having kids to begin with?
Yeah.
Right?
One kid or some fur babies, and it's done.
Yeah. If you have one kid with two, that means your birth rate is declining. Right? Your population should be declining. Without immigration, then you're screwed, right?
Yeah.
So immigration helps in terms of, like CPP is kind of like a just-in-time kind of way to do it. So like the taxes you're paying for CPP now go to the older people that are using it now for OAS.
Yeah.
So it's not like they contribute, like what you're contributing now will save for like 70 years or 40 years or whatever it is. And then you get to use that money. It's like what you're putting in now, the tax base is actually what pays for the old age security now.
Yeah.
So in order, as our population grows, we need to have more and more working people to pay for that.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is we're not the only developed nation that's experiencing population decline. We're worried about immigration numbers. Like Japan is actually really in trouble right now.
Yeah.
They're pushing hard for people to actually move there and work there.
As with every other country. The problem is that housing immigration is not tied to housing policy, which is an issue.
Yeah.
Right. So yes, we want people to come here because the demographics are just getting older, aging population, all that kind of stuff. Our workforce and labor and stuff like that is getting really, really tight. Actually, it's pretty okay right now, but it's tight. So we don't have any housing. We don't have a housing plan for these people.
Yeah. Not to mention everything's getting more expensive too. So we've actually had immigration leaking out of us.
Right.
For every year.
Well, I think I don't know, maybe that's their calculation. I'm not an immigration minister or anything like that, right? I'm not Sean Fraser, but I mean, actually he's a housing minister now, but they probably attribute extra for the churn, right? For the people that are leaving the country.
Right.
So there's just a huge structural deficit of housing right now. Like, I think it was quoted like 250,000 houses per quarter that were short.
At least.
For new.
I feel like that number, I think they said that number was actually conservative too.
Yeah, that probably includes non-permanent residents as well too. But we need the non-permanent residences, right? Because that's, our temporary labor force. It's the students that are here.
And not only housing though, but like we also have problems with have you seen our employment problem recently? Like
What's that?
Hundreds and hundreds of people keep applying to a single spot and only one person can get it. Like nobody can get hired nowadays too. So it's like, it's a little it feels almost backwards thinking because we've thought so much to bring people in. Now this article is saying maybe slow down a little bit, but now that I'm thinking about it, we can't really provide for everybody.
So there's not enough jobs for the amount of people working.
Not enough jobs, not enough housing.
The idea of doing that is that it was supposed to be deflationary on purpose, because then it brings down the wage costs, right? Because this is again supply and demand. If you have more supply of job seekers and less demand or other way around, more demand of job seekers and less supply of jobs, then the price of wages should come down. So that essentially is deflationary because the input cost of a product that you're making, a widget, is supposed to bring it down a little bit. So that's why it's a good thing for immigration. But the problem is these people when they get here, they consume things. They consume property. They need transit. They need clothing. They need food, et cetera, which all is the basket of goods, which basically increases the usage of GDP for that, right? Which causes a problem with our interest rate environment right now.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a problem, and it's a tough problem to solve. I don't think anybody has the answer for housing, the housing crisis.
No.
And the housing crisis, for those of you guys living under a rock or not in Canada, is basically that we don't have enough housing for the people that are here, right? Or the people that are coming here as well too, which then again, supply and demand pushes the price of housing up because the supply is scarce. And that just causes an issue for affordability. So it's really the housing affordability crisis, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and truly, you're right. There is not one way to solve this problem, but we can use everything that we just said as part of that solution.
So that's the idea. That I don't know if the article ends off that way, but basically the whole thing is you have to try a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So there's also other things that you didn't mention. So just to recap, we have going out, urban sprawl. We have going up, like intensification of land and cutting immigration. But there's also like, what about tiny homes or like modular homes in remote areas? I guess you can say it's urban sprawl. What about this whole ban on Airbnb, which is silly in my opinion, but whatever. What about this whole like ban of foreign buyer exemptions or whatever, foreign buyers? You can't allow foreign buyers to buy. So basically doesn't allow the foreign buyers with extra capital to hoard supply, and it just only leaves it for Canadians that are actually living here.
Which we've done that too in a way, right?
We've done so many things and none of them have worked.
Yeah.
Right. But all in combination, maybe it will. Like I think at the end of the day, you know, building houses as well too is also comes with its own challenges.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the crews, we don't have the skilled labor, we don't have the
Material
material costs. You know, if you have more demand of material, obviously the price will go up as well too.
Yeah.
So
And time.
and zoning and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we can keep up with it. So I think it's going to be a structural issue in the near long future, actually. Not even near long future, next decade. What do they say? We need 3.5 million homes in Canada, or is that Ontario?
That was in
By
Canada
2030. By 2030.
over 10. No,
10
that
years.
was
Well, less than 10 years,
It
by
was
2030.
8 years. I think we've been talking about this for a few years.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is impossible because right now we're only building 250,000 homes in Canada
Yeah.
on average.
Yeah.
By construction, not construction starts, but completions.
Completions.
Not on par.
So it's not, the math isn't adding up.
Yeah, it's not
So-
mathing.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, the solutions that are proposed by the article are also not, they don't expect immediate results. But the big question is, how do we get the most bang for buck on solving the housing crisis in the shortest amount of time possible?
Office conversions, maybe. We talked about that
Yeah,
once. in
we
one of the
talked about
previous-
office conversions.
Right. Maybe repurposing properties that are underutilized, right? Like, with all the work from home stuff and vacant office space, maybe converting them into residential.
And honestly, even incentivizing working from home could be a part of the solution as well, because it reduces the need for our infrastructure to be taxed or to be used heavily, right? And it allows people to actually live in areas that they would want to live, regardless of what their commute is to the office.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
that would actually reduce the
restaurant
strain.
business.
There's a lot of spin-off business because of that, right? That suffers as well too. You're
Yeah.
right. You're right. It's like, if they're not coming downtown to eat, then those restaurants won't survive.
This is also true.
Right. And there's something about face-to-face. I mean, like, look, we're face-to-face, and I think it helps a lot more than virtual. So whatever. I think the different levels of government can incentivize builders to build.
True.
Right, financially, because right now it's cost prohibitive to build, even though all these new things are there, like the removal of HST or GST, and then HST at the provincial level. That kind of helps purpose-built rentals, but then now we're just creating a nation of renters, right? Like, what about the people that are, they want to build to sell,
Yeah.
right? They don't have incentive to do that because right now construction costs are through the roof, land costs through the roof, materials, labor. It just all of it is just so expensive. A third of it goes to taxes as well too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So what's the incentive to build? So I think there's so many different levels of undoing we have to do, from low interest rates to everybody putting their hands in the pockets of developers thinking that they're, killing it and super rich. Like all the new stuff coming out, I don't know if you've seen or not, like some of the performers, they minimum in the downtown core anyway, they have to hit $1,600 a square foot for order to make sense. And that's only with a 15, maybe 20%. Like they aim for 20%, but usually about, 12 to 15% profit level.
I thought it was lower than that.
It's around there, 12 to 15%.
I thought it was anywhere from 10 to 13.
10 to 13, whatever, anywhere 10 to 15%, just say that, right? And yes, overall, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of millions of dollars because the project is big, right? And there's a formula to it, which or whatever. I won't get into it, but there's a formula into it that kind of makes sense that the banks will only lend you money if you have a certain number of pre-sales, or if you're looking for condos for new build, right? Which goes against what people say about or landlords hoarding investors hoarding supply for end users, because end users can go buy properties right now, but they're not.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. Long story.
That's another video I think we covered in.
We got to get into. Yeah, no, essentially that I think if the developers aren't incentivized to build new supply, then they're not going to be able to. Just they can't afford to. They can't afford to take the risk. And
it's hundreds of millions of dollars of risk.
And if people aren't buying $1,600 a square foot,
they can't close on them either.
Well, that too, because they don't appraise, right? Because the resale market is a little bit further off from what the new construction market is, right? So either land prices have to come down, or materials and labor, taxes, all that stuff really has to come down.
Yeah,
and that's the only way to make it affordable. And developers have to be incentivized to build. Yeah, because it just doesn't make sense right now to do it.
People have to be incentivized to invest or buy.
Right. Yeah. So I think that personally the answer would come at the government level. Well, part of the major part of the answers would be at the government level, whether it's provincial, municipal, federal, even to help with building. Or so the federal government has this new slush fund for the housing accelerator fund or whatever, right? However many billions it is. But they're not even building that many homes. It took 40,000 in the next 10 years. It's not even close to enough.
Slow.
To the 3.5 million that we need.
Yeah. 40,000 is currently how many houses were actually being built right now in Toronto.
Yeah. I forgot. Anyway, they just announced 40,000, I think, in Ajax or something like that, which is, I don't know. It's not enough.
It's not enough. Yeah.
Not enough.
Well, what's the bright side to cap things off there?
The bright side is if you hold property, then, well, it's not a bright side because it's kind of creates a divide more, right? Like the haves and have-nots. But yeah, it's just a bull case for the housing, people that own housing, right? It's just like there's a reason to buy or own or continue to own more housing because it's going to be and continue and will be structurally just a scarce resource. So I think, not to prop up the industry or anything, but I don't see why you wouldn't hold housing. It just doesn't make sense not to. And for people complaining, saying that landlords are hoarding supply, that's silly because it's going to take so much development, like 3.5 million for that matter, by 2030 for the prices to be affordable again. And what's define affordable? What does affordable even mean?
Yeah.
Percentage of income? Average income?
There's so many different meanings of a
certain time frame, back in the 80s when things were a little more affordable. Does it mean going back in
the 80s, 40 years ago?
You know what I mean? Does that mean undoing all that 20 years of appreciation? And how's that actually going to happen? You know what I mean? There's so many people pushing against that, like homeowners for that matter, that will not let that happen. But even if we can't build the supply, and there's people lobbying against decreasing the prices of homes because homeowners are rule makers as well too. A lot of politicians own homes,
right?
So it's such a backwards thing to think that pricing can come down.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that they expect it to come in a snap
tomorrow. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen in the next 10 years. That's a good point, actually. So I think that, you're right. In the long run, maybe in the next 20 years, maybe in the next 15 years, housing will be more affordable relative to wages, right? Or maybe inflationary pressures kick in and the value of $1 million is the same, doesn't buy you the same amount, but maybe it does buy you a house in the future.
Right.
So I don't know, man. It's such a tough problem. I don't think anybody has the answer to it. But there's certain steps that you can take, that the government can take, or that whoever can take, the different levels of all the stakeholders can take to make it affordable. It's just a very complex problem.
Very complex.
So buy more housing, moral of the story.
But
buy what you can.
Basically, that's.
But don't get over leveraged. Okay, so yes, in theory, if you're sitting on the outside thinking that, oh, it's so easy, just buy all the houses and you're rich and you're done, right? It's not that easy. There's a lot of problems with actually owning houses, right? Dealing with tenants that complain all the time or don't pay rent. That's a huge thing. The escalating costs of borrowing costs, for that matter. Increasing taxes, maintenance.
Which is why a lot of people are letting go of these properties now.
You just can't stay afloat, right?
Yeah.
And the income isn't there to support it. And then the whole thing about the rental income, right? Unaffordable rents right now. So, roommates are a little more popular because it's two people affording the same house. Or at least, you share the kitchen and the bathrooms or whatever, but you have your own rooms. Maybe eventually it's that meme. I see that meme where they're sharing one bed.
The same bed? Is that even a meme? I thought that was real.
It's
I thought
real.
some people were doing
memes about it.
There was a listing that was renting one side of the bed for a roommate.
Yeah, like 40-year-old men.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's a horrible way to.
It's like hostel living.
Yeah, it's bad news for our housing industry.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't think it's a bubble that's going to pop anytime soon because Canada is just not going to disappear out of nowhere. It's not going to go to crap. It's still a wonderful place to live.
Unless you have mass immigration.
Yeah, but that won't happen though, right? Because I think there's so many things that draw people into the country or into the city for that matter.
Right.
Whether it's jobs or diversity or food or tourism or mainly jobs at the end of the day. That it's a big powerhouse. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. Safety and security is a big one.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's actually a good point. Because you've lived abroad and it's not always safe everywhere else. Corruption. Actually, there's so much corruption here, but at least it's easy to be exposed. No wars, no genocide, knock on wood, right? So, here we are.
Okay.
I guess that's it.
There are solutions. We're looking into it. Everyone's looking into it. No one has the right answer.
Well, you know what? It's not really our place to make that policy change, right? We don't have the power to do so as like the three of us on this table or even anybody listening to this. It'll be the big policymakers, government, if you're an industry leader, et cetera. Like, say you own a company, for example, and you just, whatever. Anyway, so it's not like we can do anything about it. But what we can do is we can't change that. We know that that's a structural deficit of housing that's going to be built. There's an imbalance there.
Yeah.
So what can we do as individuals? People are going to give us hate for this, but you contribute to the housing crisis. I don't know, like
be aware of
yours.
it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, be aware of
just
it.
Get your part.
At least
get everybody else.
At least be cognizant of it.
Yeah.
That's all you should be asking. Just be aware of this situation, but you should still be able to get your own.
Well, I just use that knowledge to your power if you can.
Yeah.
In other words, right?
Yeah.
And in a sense, to all those people thinking that landlords are hoarding housing, no, we're providing housing. Right? There's
who else is going to pay for it?
Who else if landlords didn't exist, these buildings wouldn't be built because they wouldn't have the pre-sales and banks won't lend the money towards them.
Yeah.
Unless some philanthropist came there and just lent $1 trillion to build housing, build buildings, build maybe 5 buildings they could probably build, maybe 10 buildings, $1 billion each, maybe 20 buildings, 500 million each. Let's call it that. Why would they do that? For what?
Well, it's like normal landlords being grouped in with the slumlords. That's where I think the hatred comes from.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think that people just naturally hate landlords in general. Some people out there.
That's just how life is. Like you hate the rich, right?
Eat the rich.
You eat the rich.
Seriously though, you hate the rich because that's how they think. Because it's like, I'm paying you guys rent, or like I'm seeing you guys live this luxury life or whatever it is. So then you just hate them. You're a hater.
Yeah. Yeah. But meanwhile, they don't know the amount of sacrifice and risk it took to actually get that. And that the opportunity is somewhat available to everybody, right? Somewhat. And, unfortunately it gets harder and harder every year. So I guess not, because the boomers are the ones that are holding the housing supply. And it shouldn't be the case that they're way wealthier than like, say somebody studied med school for like 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And they're wealthier than them just by owning a house 50 years ago. It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But it's just, that's the world we live in. And it's always constantly going to change. You just got to adapt to that change.
Yeah.
Just roll the punches. All right. We've rambled on long enough. That's it. That's this episode. Catch you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Add it up. Thanks for sticking out to the very end. I hope you got some value out of this. Do me a favor, please press like and subscribe. But more than anything, leave me some feedback so we know what to produce for you going forward. Thanks again.